Hi, soul friends. It's Tannaz Hosseinpour, and welcome back to another episode of the Minutes on Growth podcast. Today, we have a very special guest with us, and you'll soon realize why, because we're like, I don't know, like soul twinsy in some way. But we have Natasha Joy Price with us, who also has a background in law, so property lawyer, mediator, and she has her own spiritual business where she specializes in past life regressions, theta healing, Reiki, and all the good stuff. I'm so excited to have you on. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. It's lovely to be here.
It was so amazing when I was looking at your bio. I was like, God, like there's so
I
many
know.
similarities. And then we started talking together and we're like, we think the same way. Our beliefs are so similar. The way we work is so similar. It's wild. I love that.
Yeah, so do I. It's lovely when you meet somebody. You just realize, we are completely on the same level, and it's like it's almost like a reflection, isn't it? It's almost like the universe going, yeah, you're on the right track because look, she does it
I
in just
love
the same
that.
way.
I
Yeah.
love that perspective, right? It's
Yeah.
like universal confirmation that
Yeah.
what you're doing, you're on the right path.
Yeah. Because I often joke. I'm in a little category of my own because I've got geology, I've got law, I've got spirituality, and I don't meet people, with the same stuff. And then I start to meet people who've got the same background. So I'm not on my own. So that's all good.
That's such a comforting feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. So tell us, you know, the shift. How did that shift take place from law, which is very like logical, analytical, to like, the spiritual realm, which is a lot about feeling and then intuition? I'd love to know.
I think, well, first of all, I had a very bizarre experience with my first Reiki session. I just had my third child and I had really swollen ankles. And my mother said, "Why don't you go and have a Reiki?" I had never even heard the word. I didn't know what it was about, but because I went along and I had such a bizarre experience. And it could have really frightened me, but it went the opposite way. It just fascinated me. And I thought, how have I got to this age? 37 and three kids, and I didn't know that this existed. What is this? It was almost like the walls of my little paradigm that was my life at that time fell down. And I suddenly thought, gosh, there's so much more. And I just got fascinated then. I wanted to know where this energy came from. I wanted to know what it was made of. I wanted to know how we could use it. I wanted to know what it was that I was seeing. And that started me at that point, which is quite late, I suppose, but it started me on this path of spirituality. And what I realized was, I was working as a lawyer, I had three kids under 9. And when I went and did my Reiki and when I went and did these things, I felt like my batteries had been recharged. And it really became my balance, my balance to that. Because at that time, I'd be waking up at night thinking, I haven't done that, and I haven't done that email, and I haven't done that. And it would wake me up at night. And and so I was obviously still quite stressed about it. It was, really encroaching on my life. And as I started to move more into the spirituality, I found that balance and that sort of being quite balanced and centered every day. And I've now been doing the law for 28 years. And I haven't had burnout, which a lot of people do. And I sort of say that that's down to the energy healing that I've done because that's been my balance. That's been my way of sort of controlling the anxiety and controlling the worry about things. And I've often tried to merge them together and it's never worked. So they've just sort of gone along like parallel tracks. But maybe that's the way it should be. I don't know.
Love that you mentioned burnout. and
Mm.
how we can use energy healing as a modality to kind of prevent that. Can you dive a little bit deeper into that if you don't mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So many people can't find a way to de-stress themselves. They can't find a way to stop their mind working constantly. And I find myself doing it. You work at a speed. You
Mm-hmm.
find yourself working at a speed, and you've got to do all these things, and and then it's actually really hard to just bring it down, and just relax. And even when people go home and watch the telly, they're not actually relaxed. They might have screaming kids, or they might, have an argument with their partner, or they've got to make dinner and they've got to take the dog for a walk. And, they pilot all this stuff because they want to feel in control, but it's too much. It's too much. And you've got to find a way of sort of releasing that pressure and that stress. And for me, not only was it a release energetically, but it was also a bit like I found my passion. When you find your passion and something is just so fascinating, it's not a chore,
Mm-hmm.
and you can feel yourself light up a bit when you do it, or when you talk about it, or when you just tap into that energy. And I think just that act of finding something that you're fascinated about, your passion, is a real sort of relaxer, balancer. You know, Lots of men have, going to their man caves, and they're, doing their sort of thing, and they find their passion with, you know, whatever they're doing, electronics or whatever. To them, that's, they're really focused, they're passionate about it. And I think that has really helped me. I feel like, because I think passion in that way is a really high vibrational state. It's it's a lovely place to be, where you forget you're tired, you forget like the outside world. You're just so like gripped and fascinated. Um, I think that's a great place to be, and I think that saved me from the burnout.
Wow. And
Um, and just knowing that there's a different, for me, just beginning to understand that there is a different way of being. There's a different, we're not just physical, we're energetic, and we're energetic beings having a physical experience, but we need to tap more into that energy side of it. Because I think if we don't as well, we are missing a massive piece of our overall holistic health, to be fair. I think, to me, that has to be part of, what we do every day. We clean our teeth, we take supplements, we go and have a haircut, we do all of this, and we have to work on our energy as well, definitely, in whatever way we do that. But I think it's a vital part to get that real balance and feeling centered and being able to just relax properly.
as you were speaking, I was thinking of two things. One is, when you were talking about that passion and how like time really freezes when, when you're in
Mm.
that zone of genius, and it fuels you. And so,
Yeah,
we really need these intakes into our body to kind of offset, the parts of our day that might be draining in nature, that are outside of our control, and to kind of like, exactly as you said, balance this out.
yeah,
It's just something you said, and I loved it. You said you have your spiritual lane and you have, the legal part of it, and they're working in parallel. And I want to talk about that because oftentimes we think we have to choose one or the other, or
yeah.
like, either I have to be a super spiritual person and I have to let go of my career, and or you know um or what if I don't want to make spirituality my career? Like, does that mean I can't have that element in me? Can we talk about like how you've managed to maintain, grow, and thrive in both?
Yeah. I mean, I've often tried to merge them, and it's never worked. And then I've sat back and thought, well, maybe it's not meant to be, or But then on the other hand, I think maybe I am shifting people that I work with actually without consciously knowing. I've had comments like you're one of the kindest solicitors I've ever met, which was so flattering, but actually a bit sad. I was thinking, well, what's going on with the rest of them? We don't have to be in that mentality of competition and ego and or which a lot of that sort of corporate world is. That we need to be kind as well, and we need to, and maybe I've often had quite a few colleagues who have worked with me for a bit and then said, I'm leaving and I'm going to do this, or become a bit ill, and it used to panic me a little. And I thought, oh, am I shifting them, or, you know, what's happening with that? But I think because of the way my energy is, and as I'm working in close proximity with them, it was bringing up stuff to clear.
Mhm.
It was helping them to clear that until I understood it. And maybe that's what I'm there to do. Maybe I'm there to shift other other solicitors, shift the legal world. I don't know. Um, but yeah, I never set out to have a business in spirituality. It just fascinated me, and I wanted to know more about it. And it evolved into doing the odd client, but I've got limited time, so but it evolved also into books, and it evolved into my podcast, which I love. I can talk about energy healing all day, every day. So that's a pleasure. And then more recently, it's gone into courses and helping other corporate women, find that way to get that balance and through energy healing. And, so I suppose in a way, I I haven't sort of put the business model to my spiritual business. I've sort of just done what I've been drawn to do. And maybe that's a path in itself. I don't know. But when you've got another full-time job, it's not so much, I've got to make this work, I've got to make this work. It's just been what I've been pulled to do, what I've been passionate about. I've met people and collaborated with them just because I gelled with them, I liked them, and we were on the right wavelength and we wanted to do something together. So I've played really. And you know what? It's been fun. It's been so much fun. And maybe taking away, got to make this business work. I've got to pay the mortgage. I've got to pay the bills has meant that I have had more fun, more creativity. If I've wanted to go off on a tangent, it hasn't been a risk. I don't see it as a risk. It's just what I want to do in that area.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. It's just been, yeah, my law has enabled me to play and just follow a zigzaggy path rather than a straight line or trying to make a business work. And that's been fun. And I suspect I've grown much more quickly um, than I would have done if I've gone from, A to B to B to C. I think I really have zigzagged around. But yeah, and it's kept it fun. And that's a really, that's a good vibration. I think you can get clogged down trying to make your spiritual business work.
Yeah.
And I've given myself permission. No, you don't have to make it work because you've got something else. You just do what you want to do.
But also sometimes that is the secret to success, right? The
Yeah.
playfulness, the fun, the feminine energy of flow and
Yeah.
softness is what, it's like you're not fighting, you're not resisting, you're not pushing. You're just
No.
allowing, as you were speaking, I was like, she's allowing the vision to pull her into it instead of
Yeah.
pushing towards it.
Yeah. And I think, I believe that spirit puts people in front of me. Both the books that I've published have not been because I've thought I'm going to write a book. It's
Mhm.
been because other people have said, do you want to write a book? Do you want to do, different publishing? Do you want to do and when it was both have been ex-students that have said, well, why don't you publish it? Why don't you do this? I'll help you. And it's sort of come about that way. So you're right. It's not it's not pushing for something. It's just those people arrived, helped me. We did it, you know. So
And like it seems to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like, sometimes people think purpose is one special thing we do, but purpose is, in my opinion, who we are and how, the different mediums through which that manifests. So for you, like this is, energy healing is who you are, and it's manifesting, whether it's through the book, it's through the courses, through one-on-one, it's through the podcast, it's through these different mediums, and you're just a channel of expansion on who you are, and energy healing is part of that. No, and it,
yeah,
it also like applies how you show up at work as a lawyer, like.
yeah, absolutely. I love that. I tell you, I was walking to work the other day and I walked through a park and there's some beautiful trees. And me being me, I had to touch the trees as I walked past. And I touched this beautiful, like 500-year-old tree, and I didn't even break stride. I just sort of touched her. And I heard this little voice behind me say, "Excuse me, excuse me." And I turned around, there was a young man there who was about 30, and he said, "I just want to say how moved I was at how you touched that tree." So I was like, oh, I was a bit taken aback. And we started talking, and he was really emotional. And he just kept saying to me, I can't, it's so lovely to see somebody touch a tree like that. I thought it was only me, sort of thing. And I was so touched. Never seen him again. I don't know who he was. And I just thought, isn't that lovely that the simplest thing didn't even occur to me. It didn't even break stride. It was just, I just touched the tree, moved him, shifted him. And I like that. I just think the kindest gesture, or maybe just something that you say to somebody, or the lady who said to me, when we worked together, you were the kindest solicitor. I couldn't even remember her, that which is awful, but I couldn't remember her. But she, obviously, something I did shifted her in some way. So, yeah, I think that's lovely, just through the learning and abilities and expansion. And I would love to be able to help everybody expand through energy healing. I just think it is such a beautiful thing thing to include in your life, an activity, an awareness to have in your life, um, and yeah, and that you can just shift people by your vibration is fabulous.
Mm. I love that. And I know that you've, used recently used yourself as a medium to channel a new book. And,
Yeah.
you shared your intention with me of like hoping this book, exactly as you said, shifts something, like becomes a medium of expansion for the reader. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so it's called, it only came out in December, and it's called the Red Magus. It's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And it's the main theme of it is past life regression. I'm a past life regression therapist. So a lot of what I talk about in the book, is the way that a session would evolve. A
Hmm.
lot of it is made up, but there's a lot of experiences that I've had over the years. Because of course, when you do training, you have to be the client.
Hmm.
So I've had hundreds of past life regressions. So lots of things that have come up, and that I talk about in the book, and I've woven into the story, are real experiences. And I had great fun just weaving in all sorts of spiritual themes that I've loved over the years, like essential oils and crystals and spirit animals, and clearing a space, and um, mediumship. I've even got reading the tea leaves in there as well. Just all sorts of things. But I've sort of built it into, it's really like a mystery, spiritual mystery, if you like.
Hmm.
So the main character, Cassie, goes for a past life regression session. She's just had a baby. She's struggling, where she fits in the world as a mother, a wife. So she goes for a past life regression session, and she sees what she sees and feels. First of all, the fact that she does see something and does feel emotion shocks her. but she also sees a life where she believes she's been murdered. And then as the book evolves, she begins to realize that perhaps that's being played out in her current life again. There's all sorts of parallels. And it's how she and her friends sort of work through this and deal with it and come to different conclusions. And then in one of the sessions, she meets the Red Magus.
Mhm.
And it's this beautiful red-haired woman who's like a priestess. Magus is actually masculine, but the a magus, magi is plural, but they were like priestesses and priests and soul midwives, although they didn't use that term then, and um, all that sort of thing. And they'd help people with relationship issues and using energy and spells. And it was all a big mishmash of energy work and spiritual themes. And she meets this woman in through the past life regression, and she begins to realize that this woman is also sending her a warning about her current life across sort of time and space. So it's all about how that all plays out and evolves. And yeah, it was great fun to write.
I can imagine. I'm
Yeah.
I'm curious, how does doing a past life regression session help us with our current experience of reality?
So often they can play out the same themes. So if, in that past life, what we believe is that you incarnate into this lifetime and you're learning lessons. Um, you're learning about perhaps the emotion of jealousy or the emotion of grief or whatever it is. And if you actually don't resolve that, if you actually don't learn the lesson that you've come to do, you can repeat it again. And there might be the same thread through many lifetimes because about the same emotion, because you then learn sort of 180-degree, 360-degree sort of tangent about the same emotion. So you might find that you've had life after life after life where you've been learning about grief, and then there'll come a point where you've done it, you've learned that emotion from every angle, and you move on to the next lesson. So often you can reincarnate with the same group of people. So maybe in different formats. So my son in this lifetime, I have seen him in a past life, but he was my senior officer and we were in a battle together. Explains a lot, Tanaz. But, we often, so you often say to people in a past life, do you recognize that energy, and let them tune into it? And they'll say, yeah, I know who that is. I know who that is. And often that shifts the relationship in this lifetime. You get a ripple effect whenever you get some sort of realization, and it will ripple out into this lifetime and into your future lives. Because, of course, it's not just past life regression, but you can do future life progression as well. So you can go forward in this lifetime, but you can go into your next lifetime as well.
So it's
So,
like energy is everything is energy, right?
yeah,
Like that's literally what it sums up. And
yeah,
so time, so I believe like um parallel timelines. Everything's kind of happening at the same time.
yeah.
Um, so is that does that concept play into past and future life progression and regression as well?
Yes, I've come to believe that myself, that everything is playing out at the same time. Time is not linear. We humans make time linear so that they can understand past,
Hmm.
now, current, and future. But no, it's not. So you can tap in. And if you think about it, if say the Red Magus is alive in now and Cassie's alive now, they can talk to each other. They can influence each other now. So, so we are just energy. We're that soul energy, and our soul passes, has this path, but like you say, it's not linear. To me, it's like a cobweb, and you can move anywhere on that cobweb that you want to go. and you can glean information. But if you think about it, if we can do that and we were like a famous pianist in one of our lives, we already know that. We know that ability. We if we just remember that ability, or we were an amazing healer, we are. We've got that information in us now.
Yeah.
So if you tap into those and you're able to bring that energy, um, like future life progression, if you take somebody forward 10 years and you say, look in a mirror, do you look healthy? Do you feel healthy? Can you tap into and often they go, gosh, my knees are terrible. And then they, in this lifetime, they just do something like start doing exercises now, or they tweak something so that they've changed that future life. They've morphed it. They've changed the outcome of it.
Wow. Such an
They can,
empowering thought, no?
oh, incredibly, incredibly. You are not alone because, you are playing out, you've got all your other incarnations that can help you. They're all there. They're not that far away if you can just tune into them.
Wow. And
It's
can we do
it's a
these
bit
sessions
mind
on?
blowing at times.
It really is.
Yeah.
As you were sharing, I was like, I need to go to the future. I need to see like what's happening.
Yeah. It's so fascinating doing that, and other times somebody said to me, oh, I look fabulous. I look really great, but actually I'm really unhappy. I can tell I'm really unhappy. So what's that about? So then it's so helpful. Why would you not go and ask your future self or your past self, advice, you know?
And is
So
this
yeah.
something we can do on like via Zoom, or does it have to be in person?
No, we can do it via Zoom. I do, I usually vet people though, because obviously when you're in past lives, it is actually incredibly emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about the history of our world, we are actually living, I know it sounds strange, but we are living in quite a safe time.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back to, being tortured or being burnt as a witch, or it's very traumatic. So I vet people and I just make, if they're used to trance, they're used to meditation, then I'm happily do it on Zoom. If they've never done anything before, I would perhaps say go and have a session with somebody in person because you want to be there to sort of help them through that. Um, be in the room and be able to hold their hand and say, open your eyes, come back. Um, so yeah, but normally if people are very spiritually aware, we can do it by Zoom and yeah,
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing all of that, Natasha. Like it's
my
so
pleasure.
much to take in and but so powerful and empowering and
Yeah.
oof, I love it. I love it. Can you tell the audience how they can reach you, how they can purchase the book?
So the book, The Red Magus, it's available on Amazon and it's available on Barnes and Noble. And my business is Dandelion Therapies. So you can just Google me. And then the podcast is Balm to the Soul as well. So people can contact me through both of those. So yeah,
Amazing. Thank you so, so much for sharing. And
my
even more, I
pleasure.
thank you for showing up as your authentic self and allowing the universe to kind of, manifest all of this amazing energy healing work through you. That takes
Oh,
a lot
thank
of
you.
courage. So thank you.
And bringing you to me.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, universe. I know you can hear us. I loved it. It's amazing. Just love the
Lovely.
universe. Well, thank you so much, Natasha, for joining us. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Speak soon.